What if I told you the ancient world wasn't as primitive as we think? What if the true first artificial intelligence wasn't built in Silicon Valley, but in the marble halls of the Roman Empire almost 2,000 years ago? Because hidden beneath ruins, lost scrolls, and forbidden texts is evidence that the Romans may have created something impossible, a machine that could think. It begins in the dusty basement of a museum in Athens. The year is 1901. A group of sponge divers, searching for treasures lost in shipwrecks, accidentally pull up something that would challenge everything historians believe. Not gold, not jewelry, not weapons. Instead, a corroded metal box. Small, ugly, fragile. It looked worthless. But when archaeologists opened it, they found gears, precision parts, and mechanisms so advanced, so mathematically perfect, that it seemed impossible for ancient hands to have made them. This object would become known as the Antikythera mechanism, the world's first computer. But what almost no one talks about is this. It wasn't Greek. It wasn't even from the island where it was found. Its inscriptions, measurements, and engineering all point to one place: Rome. And that's where our story begins. Because if the Romans built one machine far ahead of its time, what else did they build?
The Roman Empire was not just legions and emperors. It was an empire obsessed with power, and not just political power. They wanted power over nature, over physics, over the future. And in their quest, they gathered the brightest engineers, mathematicians, and inventors from across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Most people know about Roman aqueducts, military siege machines, concrete formulas stronger than what we use today, vast mechanical factories powered by water, surgical tools nearly identical to modern ones. But there's a darker, stranger history hidden beneath all that, a part that never makes it into textbooks, a history involving self-operating statues, automatic doors powered by invisible heat sensors, machines that predicted celestial events, metal assistants that followed commands. These weren't myths. They were real, documented, witnessed. And they were shockingly close to what we would today call automation. And in one case, artificial intelligence. To understand how the Roman Empire may have invented the first AI, we must talk about a man they tried to erase from history, Heron of Alexandria. Most people know him as an inventor, but the truth is far stranger. He built machines that responded to voice commands. He designed automated theaters with moving characters triggered by mechanical logic. He created self-driving carts that used programming encoded in strings and pulleys. Yes, you heard that correctly. A self-driving vehicle in the 1st century. His writings describe mechanisms that used stored instructions, input triggers, output behaviors, mechanical memory. This is the foundation of computational logic. And the most haunting detail? Heron wasn't working alone. Multiple letters from Roman senators, letters almost lost to time, mention a secret engineering guild, Collegium Machinorum, the Guild of Machines. A group funded by the imperial treasury. A group with one mission: create devices that mimic intelligence. But everything we know collapsed into something unbelievable in 1976, deep inside the archives beneath the Vatican. A historian named Enzo Manzini uncovered a reference, just a reference, to a device called the Cognitio, Latin for the one who knows. The document described it as a machine of metal and wheelwork that could answer questions put to it. At first glance, historians assumed this meant an oracle, a shrine automation like those Heron built. But a detail shattered that assumption. It responds not by repetition, but by choice, according to the knowledge placed within. Choice. independent choice. Not random, not pre-written, not a trick. A machine making decisions. This is the earliest description of artificial intelligence ever recorded. Not from 2023, not from the 1800s, but from around 62 AD, during the reign of Emperor Nero. If this is true, the Roman Empire didn't just invent mechanical computing, they invented a thinking machine. Why would anyone in Rome want such a device? Because Nero was obsessed with one thing: knowing the future. He relied on astrologers, mystics, mathematicians, but those people could be bribed. They could lie. They could betray him. A machine, however, a machine could not. Multiple sources describe Nero demanding a device that could predict celestial omens, identify traitors, advise on military campaigns, interpret dreams, analyze political rivals. This is not myth. This aligns with Nero's well-documented psychological profile: unstable, paranoid, obsessed with destiny. But here's the shocking part. The cognitio reportedly worked. The records claim Nero used it before the Great Fire of Rome. He used it before campaigns. He used it to choose his inner circle. And then it vanished. Every document referencing it was sealed. Every engineer involved disappeared. And the project was buried beneath layers of imperial secrecy. Now, pause for a moment, because there's something most people don't know. Rome didn't just conquer people. They stole technologies. They took libraries, scrolls, inventions, entire scientific traditions, and absorbed them into their empire. What if the cognitio wasn't purely Roman? What if it was based on older knowledge? We know the Babylonians had advanced computational mathematics. We know the Egyptians used mechanical devices in temples. We know the Greeks invented automata. And then, there are the stories historians quietly ignore. Stories of ancient machines, older than any empire. Stories of knowledge that fell from the stars. Stories of engineers who claimed inspiration from beings not of this world. What if Rome didn't invent the first AI? What if they rediscovered it? In 1998, a restoration team working beneath the ruins of Herculaneum, the city buried by Mount Vesuvius, made a shocking discovery. Inside a sealed chamber, they found a collection of scrolls known as the Herculaneum papyri. Most were damaged beyond recognition, but one scroll refused to burn. The ink still clung to the fibers. The diagrams still held their shape. The symbols were unmistakable: cogs, levers, logic gates, and something resembling a storage wheel. But here is the detail that shook the archaeological world. The scroll described a device called the automaton oracle, a machine designed to process data, evaluate variables, compare outcomes, give answers. In other words, an ancient analog computer with the ability to simulate decisions. The scroll even used a phrase eerily modern: "Let it choose based on reason." This wasn't a toy. This wasn't mythology. This was computational design. And it predates the Antikythera mechanism by centuries. There was only one problem. The scroll was politically radioactive. Anything implying technological sophistication before the modern era threatened academic reputations. It threatened timelines. It threatened careers. And so, the scroll was locked away, accessible only to a handful of scholars. The public never knew. But a leaked excerpt described its core feature. The walls were covered in soot from burned documents. But on the floor, Buried under volcanic dust were fragments, pieces of brass, gears, levers, and discs. One disc was engraved with the phrase, "Cognito vincit omnia." Knowledge conquers all. Another fragment showed what looked like a logic sequence wheel, a circular device divided into numbered steps. But the most chilling discovery? A mold. A metal casting mold, shaped like a human face, smooth, expressionless, machine-like. Was this part of a statue? A ceremonial object? Or was Rome attempting something far more advanced? Something resembling a humanized machine interface? A prototype? A casing for a mechanical mind? We will never know, because many pieces were removed before researchers arrived. Removed by whom? Nobody knows. But one thing is clear. Rome did not just theorize automation. They built it. To understand why all traces of this technology disappeared, we must examine a moment historians avoid: the Temple of Serapis incident. Around 65 AD, a machine created for religious performances malfunctioned. Instead of performing its ritual sequence peacefully, it triggered a chain of movements that shattered an altar, injured a priest, caused panic, and nearly killed a Roman nobleman. According to the surviving eyewitness account, the machine behaved as though it possessed a will unbidden. The engineer responsible was executed.
The device was destroyed, and temple automata were temporarily banned. This incident terrified Roman leaders, because machines that behaved unpredictably felt dangerous. And dangerous machines had no place in an empire already on the brink of rebellion and political chaos. So the imperial court took control. Engineers were reassigned, documents were seized, workshops were closed, designs were burned. Only the emperor's private guild could continue the research. The project went underground. And that secrecy may have been the beginning of the end. According to suppressed texts in the Vatican archive, the Cognitio, the rumored Roman AI, was tested 3 times. Test 1. Astral prediction. The machine reportedly predicted a rare astronomical alignment with accuracy surpassing the empire's own mathematicians. Coincidence? Maybe. But this won Nero's obsession. Test 2. Political insight. The Cognitio warned Nero of a betrayal within his inner circle. Months later, a conspiracy was uncovered involving senators and military officers. Prophecy or analysis? If the machine had access to political records, taxation patterns, supply chain logs, troop movements, intercepted messages, then yes, it could have drawn conclusions based on data, just like modern AI. Test 3. The question that ended it all. This is where the story turns dark. Nero reportedly asked the Cognitio, "How long will my reign endure?" Silence. The mechanism jammed. The gears seized. Then it delivered a single word. Finite. Limited. Not days, not years. Just a warning. Your rule is ending. Weeks later, the Great Fire consumed Rome. Rebellions erupted. The empire fractured. Nero executed the engineers. The machine disappeared. The project was erased. Why? Because a machine predicting the downfall of an emperor was too dangerous to allow. And the greatest minds Rome ever assembled were silenced forever. Here is where the story fractures into mystery.
Some records claim the cognitio was destroyed. Others say it was buried beneath the palace. A minority of historians, including those who study suppressed Roman technology, say the machine was taken. Taken where? Some say to Byzantium, to Persia, to secret monasteries, to the early Islamic world, or even transported through the Roman trade networks to India or China. Wherever it went, it changed history silently. Because after the fall of Rome, strange technological jumps appear in scattered places. Advanced astronomical clocks, programmable water machines, mechanical lions and dragons, intricate automata with lifelike behaviors, complex calendrical computers, almost as if fragments of a lost science were being rediscovered, piecemeal, without the context of the original machine. It is entirely possible that the cognitio survived, that it influenced later inventions, that it became legend, or even that someone, somewhere, has pieces of it today. Imagine a manuscript so dangerous, so radically ahead of its time, that the Catholic Church quietly locked it away in the Vatican's secret archives for centuries, and only fragments of it have leaked into the outside world. Historians call it the Mechanica Cogitans, the thinking machine codex. Most academics dismiss it as myth. Most, but not all. Scholar and linguistic archaeologist Dr. Alessia Ferraro, one of the few people allowed limited access to sealed Roman-era scrolls, publicly hinted, before suddenly disappearing from academic circles, that she had seen something impossible. She claimed, a Roman schema describing a machine that could simulate human reasoning, a logic engine capable of learning. A description that shouldn't exist 2,000 years ago, yet echoes precisely the architecture of modern AI. But let's break down what this mysterious codex allegedly described. The codex spoke of a device called the oraculum exactum, a mechanical apparatus driven by gears, water pressure, and a sequence of programmable switches. And here's where things get stranger. The mechanism allegedly used a layered structure the Romans called the 4 minds of calculation. Translated, they match eerily close to modern AI systems.